In the shadows, truth begins to fade. Among the whispers, lies are made. Candace words, twisting minds apart. But we stand strong, speak from the heart. These claims, we won't let them fly. It's time to examine, not just comply. Gish gotta go, we're calling you out. Fighting for truth, that's what it's about. Raising our voices, can't let it slide. For every kid's future, we'll stand side by side. Vitamin K, a shield against the fall. Saving our babies, answering the call. Thomas and Matthew, united with pride, exposing the deceptions that can't abide. Power and knowledge, we hold it tight. Together we fight in the darkest night. Gish gallop, go, we're calling you out. Fighting for truth, that's what it's about. And raising our voices, can't let it slide. For every kid's future, we'll stand side by side. So let's break the silence, rise up and roar. For every little life, we'll always fight
Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to episode 28 of Gish Gallop Girl, A Shot in the Dark Part 2. I think we've picked up more listeners lately, and that's really cool. What you just heard was the acoustic version of our theme song this week, Acoustic Rock. You may have heard the words vitamin K in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I am Thomas Anderson, and as always with me is...
Matthew Anderson.
That's right. So, let's start talking about this. So, why was vitamin K in there? Well, because vitamin K is the subject of Candace's Shot in the Dark Part 2. Anyway, I've received some good emails that have been very supportive for the show, and all I can say is thank you. The encouragement has been great. We're covering Shot in the Dark Part 2, Episode 2, whatever you want to call it today. So let's start things off with this first clip. I'll let Candace bring us in.
All right, guys, welcome to Episode 2 of A Shot in the Dark. I'm still so excited that we are bringing this to the Daily Wire platform. We spent the first episode just kind of introducing all of you guys that are new to this series to what exactly it's about, how I got into this, and why I deem it to be the most important work that I do. And I think now we can sort of jump into the childhood vaccination schedule. I think the perfect place to start, obviously, is when your baby is born. You're a brand new baby, you're so excited. The first thing that the doctor tells you that your perfect little infant needs, of course, is a vitamin K shot. So we're going to spend this episode discussing just that. Now, before we get into that, I do want to ask a simple question, and it is a question that should be asked over and over and over again. The sell to us is that vaccinations make children healthier, right? Which means that children that are unvaccinated should be less healthy than children that are vaccinated.
Vaccination is done for protection against horrible diseases. Thus, kids in difficult or adverse circumstances are better protected against hazards. It's like skating and either wearing pads or not wearing pads. The pads aren't going to make you better, but if you fuck up, they'll help with the impact injuries, which will help you resume skating or serve as a reminder that maybe you suck at this activity.
Why'd you pick skating out of all the sports?
Well, because I briefly used a skateboard.
Oh,
my
that
life.
kind of skate.
Or,
Tell you how Minnesotan I've already gotten with
you
things. I
thought
was
ice
assuming
skating?
ice skating. Yeah, I was like,
know
I've
what's
never
funny?
seen anybody in pads aside from hockey players.
Yeah, no, I've never seen anybody in pads aside from hockey players. But I think part of that is because, if you're on an ice rink, most of the people on ice rinks are either wearing like thinsulate
Yeah.
or coats.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of middle ground.
And usually, if you're wearing thin slit, you do that shit seriously. And
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
tend to be very good.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're usually the ones that will
It's-
help you out for free when they see you trying to walk across the ice.
Well, what's funny is that the less clothes somebody has on, like the less like bundled up shit they have on skating on the ice, it tends to be the better they are. Mm-hmm. But I think like if you don't know what you're doing and you get out there on the ice and you're not wearing like protective clothing, you're going to have a bad time,
Yeah.
So, next clip.
So the question, we have to ask the question, why hasn't Big Pharma funded plenty of studies comparing vaccinated children against unvaccinated children? I would supply my children for that study. I am such a big believer in the decisions that I have made in my household. My children are so robust, so healthy. I have a 2-year-old boy who has only ever been sick every time he gets a tooth. He pops a fever. Big Pharma will tell you that's impossible. Every parent in the world will tell you that a tooth equals a fever. And I have a daughter who is about to be 10 months who has not been sick a day in her life, not even for teeth. So my children are unbelievably healthy.
Go ahead.
I still have memories of, well, not necessarily getting. No, I got some of my teeth when I was little, and I remember those. But I never remember getting sick or being told that it's a common thing to get a fever when you gain or lose a tooth.
Yeah, this can indicate an issue if true.
Yeah.
Because I looked into this, and while an elevated temperature during teething is normal, an actual fever, which is anything north of 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit, I don't know what the metric works out to, I don't care, is not normal and can indicate an infection of various types. Candace says her kids are unbelievably healthy, and that is correct in that I do not believe it.
Yeah, especially not if that is a true statement of if that's a norm for her kids, she should probably. Oh wait, sorry, that would involve taking them to a doctor. My bad.
Yeah, a doctor that isn't just fleecing her.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll work out the metric real quick.
Okay. Well, moving on. I hope she had permission to say this about her relatives.
And in my life, I actually got to kind of conduct this unique experiment. I know I told you guys that my sisters both live in Connecticut, and they were both pregnant at the same time during COVID. They had their child the year before I had my child, and we all had different ideas about what we wanted to do with vaccinations. I was firmly in the I am not vaccinating camp, having been injured by the Gardasil vaccine. My
Lies.
younger sister was in the we want to delay the schedule camp, and my oldest sister was convinced that they wanted to stay on schedule because they looked into it and they believed that vaccines were best. And I just want to say, I respect all of those decisions, and I have said this from the beginning. No matter what you decide walking out of this, if you look at this information and you say, I want to vaccinate my child nonstop, that is your right to do that. I just want you to be able to ask questions and be more informed. Well, so now we get to kind of look at what has happened with our 3 children, all boys that were pretty much born. My son was a year younger than them, around the same time, and we see the evidence, which is just that my child, my son, is healthier than their children. It's just a circumstance. My oldest sister, who stuck to the schedule, her son is pretty much always sick. It's kind of incredible. He suffers from chronic ear infections. He has been on antibiotics back to back over and over again. I felt like he was on antibiotics for 6 months during 1 year of his life. And she is aware of that. I don't know that she attributes it to vaccines. My youngest sister, her son, got a really bad case of pertussis. They told her that it wasn't pertussis, that it was something else. And I said, okay, he's had this cough, this very serious cough that led him into the hospital for more than 100 days. It's very clear to me that this is pertussis, but they're not telling you that because you vaccinated him against pertussis. So how could that possibly be? My son has had none of those things. He's never had an ear infection. He never had whooping coughs, pertussis, anything of that nature. And so my oldest sister, who is pregnant again right now, said that they are thinking about not vaccinating their child, simply because they look at my son and they see how healthy he is. They're amazed by how healthy he is, because they probably initially thought, Candace is crazy. Why wouldn't she get vaccines? We were raised in a vaccinated household. How could she make this decision? But she cannot deny what she is seeing with her own eyes when we get the children together. So
Yeah.
What? Oh, hang on. Let me get this straight. She's mingling a child that's got potentially, according to her expertise, fucking expert diagnosis there. I am being sarcastic. That she's mixing a pertussis potential child with a non-vaccinated against pertussis child.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I hope that she had, permission to share those stories about her sisters. I've been listening to Candace a lot here and there.
Yeah.
I've never once heard her mention her brother.
No.
She has a brother. She's only ever mentioned him once, to my remembrance, in that book, Blackout.
Yeah.
So, I wonder if maybe he didn't pull her aside when she was getting famous and go, keep my name out of your fucking mouth. Mm-hmm. I know his name. But I won't say it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I want to remind everyone that this was recorded 3 years ago in 2022 and originally behind a paywall. The general public might not have had access to this, but since she also wanted to make this series free to see, I have no idea. Anyway, I take a lot of issue with Candace throwing her relatives' business out there into the street. It's none of our business how private persons that have not entered the public arena live their lives or raise their children. That said, Candace lives in a wealthy lifestyle. Her sisters might not live that way, and any number of factors can contribute to the kid's state of health. The older boy being on months of antibiotics, if true, given that she said it is an ear issue, could be chronic otitis media or chronic otitis with effusion. Either way, it's an ear infection that can be developed from a number of factors that have fuck all to do with any vaccines. The culprit causes of this are usually physical in origin, such as a perforated or punctured eardrum, Eustachian tube blockage, or other ear, nose, and throat issues. This is not an issue that a vaccine could have helped with or caused harm with, so linking to that is absurd. Moving on to the younger boy. Saying that the boy has pertussis when the doctors have not said that, on top of this being the kid that she said the parents were delaying the vaccine schedule of, kinda proves the point, if it is pertussis, that maybe he should have gotten his vaccine on schedule. Fucking ridiculous reasoning as usual. But also, Candace Owens is the last person I would trust on this. If the vaccine didn't work, that would be cause for concern. Saying shit like, it is pertussis, they just don't want to own up to it because it means that they would have had to admit the vaccine was bullshit, to a concerned parent is insane, especially given that a weak or failed vaccine would be newsworthy. But it is safe to assume that the child was tested and the actual cause is actually known. Mm-hmm. There are a number of pertussis-like illnesses that are not pertussis but present in a similar way. One is called parapertussis. It is similar, as the name indicates, but it lacks the actual pertussis toxin that triggers the immune response in vaxxed people. Death from it is extremely rare. Other similar illnesses include croup, which is common, and RSV, which is getting more common. All of those can present with similar symptoms, and while there is a vaccine for RSV, there isn't one for parapertussis or croup, but croup can be defended against with flu shots, measles vaccine, DTaP or Tdap vaccines, or hemophilia type B, also known as the Hib vaccine. Protecting against those things can stop the root cause of croup from happening in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I researched and wrote all that within a 10-minute fucking time period.
Not only the coop being able to be dealt with other words. with other vaccines that are already, injected at that point.
Right.
But also the paraprotesis being essentially, from what that sounds like, a non-lethal. Like it.
Yeah, it's so similar that it's, like I said, the only thing it lacks, it has all the symptoms,
but
and it acts in a similar way, but it lacks the actual toxin
that actually kills.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that actually will kill and linger, and be very hard to deal with. Yeah.
Also, the eardrum infection, like you mentioned before, the punctured or perforated eardrum. Yeah. There's also always, this was, problem with some folks that I used to know, fucking black mold.
Yeah.
If you live in lower end housing, there's likelihood that you've got mold growing, even if you don't see it.
Well, you can even live in new housing.
Oh, true, yeah.
There were several neighborhoods back in Jacksonville that had been built in the late '90s, early 2000s, and this was in. I don't know if it made it to the Florida Times Union, but I know that the local free weekly rag, Folio Weekly, had reported on this extensively to a point where these new homes, like $250,000 and better houses, were made with cheap and shoddy materials and workmanship.
Yeah. And
these people had entire rooms of their house locked away and sealed because the black mold in those rooms was so toxic.
Yeah.
And I mean, these are new houses, and unfortunately, these people had no legal recourse.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But, black mold getting into, kids either.
Yeah.
Getting into a wound. Mm-hmm. The most common side effect I've heard from anybody dealing with black mold, one of my old coworkers had this problem, and at the ripe age of 60 is still dealing with the side effects of such, which is, as you get older, that damage that was caused to your eardrum slowly but surely apparently makes your eardrum go hollow.
Yeah. It can, and that's just one side effect. Like there are several.
Yeah. So if kid's on constant antibiotics, he's probably, fighting off the infection that is continuously lingering due to potentially mold in the air.
Yeah. I mean, there's no telling
shit. Back when we lived in fucking Green Cove.
Yeah.
And all of the fucking AC vents had black mold in them. And I got fucking respiratory issues out of it.
Yeah.
And had that respiratory issue until we moved out.
Yeah.
Coughed up a whole fuckload of phlegm, and then I was A-okay afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, after we had moved out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go on to the next one.
Yep.
That was just something personal that I wanted to share with you. And just to go back to asking the question is, why won't Big Pharma fund these studies, right? Well, I'll tell you the answer. This is the official answer that they have given. They'll fund any studies, by the way. They are happy to experiment on your children. They are happy to race vaccines and get them into your children's arms. But the reason why they say that they will not fund a bunch of studies comparing vaccinated children to unvaccinated children is because it's too unethical. Yep. That's what they say. They say it would be so unethical if we went into the home of an unvaccinated individual and we had access to these vaccines and we denied them these wonderful vaccines. How could we do that? Look at us. We're so ethical. That is their excuse. It is such BS. Like I said, just thinking about the unbelievable studies that take place, if you really dig deep into how Big Pharma conducts these studies, the things that they've done in the past in America that they tried to get away with, quite literally watching black people die from syphilis, which was one medical experiment of yesteryear. There is no ethical standards that they are free to take a look at a healthy child like my children.
Okay, so Candace is one to talk about ethics, isn't she? But let's keep it to this argument. So it would be unethical to deny kids life-saving vaccines. Duh. But more to the point, a common villain in this alt-right grift narrative is the eponymous Big Pharma that these people call out so often without naming companies, mostly because they don't want to get sued. The truth is, most studies conducted as research and development are done at universities in America. Universities have the facilities, access to communities of not just students, but often the towns around them, and access to donors in the form of alumni, donors meaning, money, and are favorable institutions for companies to support. This is one reason among many why cutting off the Department of Education is such a huge mistake, because a lot of federal funds have gone to universities for medical science research. Several such programs have been responsible for massive leaps in medical technology over the last few decades. But anyway, I said all of that to bring up the fact that the experiment Candace talked about at the end there, giving black folks syphilis, was not done by any major medical company that runs on profit. It was done by an educational institution. Tuskegee Institute in Alabama and the United States Public Health Service over a 40-year period from 1932 to 1972. It is often known as the Tuskegee experiment, but it is officially known as the Tuskegee Syphilis Study. Poor black men, about 399 with syphilis and 201 without it, were enrolled into the program and promised free medical care. They were deceived and were denied treatment even after penicillin became the standard cure for syphilis in 1947, which was about 15 years into the study. The study caused direct harm, and that 28 men died directly from syphilis, 100 died from related complications, and 40 wives caught the disease, and 19 children were born with it. It only ended in 1972 due to media leaks about the study. The lasting impact of this, of course, is distrust in modern medicine by black folks, which, combined with other fucked up things, is totally understandable. I don't shill for any drug companies, but there is no proof that any of them had anything to do with this, and that's why Candace just uses the term Big Pharma to cast blame. Just know that any time she says Big Pharma without a company name or institute name attached, she is blowing smoke up her listeners' asses. I can name a company right fucking now that has a legal history, fucking Bayer Pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
Do you know what Bayer Pharmaceuticals was doing in Germany?
No.
In the 1930s? And into the 40s?
I'm gonna guess giving POWs diseases.
No.
Mustard gas?
No. They were making a gas known as Cyclone B, which was funneled into, the gas chambers in Auschwitz. Yeah. That's Bayer Pharmaceuticals, which still exists today. Bayer stayed alive as a company after World War II because they agreed to give up the formula for aspirin. They held the private formula for aspirin. They agreed to give it up among a few other concessions. And that kept them going. See, and I can name all that because it's all true. It's all on the record.
Look, we're sorry about what we did. How about we fix your knee pain with a different drug?
Yeah.
Won't you forgive us, yeah? That's...
now, that said, I don't buy Bayer aspirin.
Yeah.
I don't buy any Bayer products. But I do take aspirin.
Yeah. Yeah, you get the...
I get the cheap... there's no difference. There's no chemical fundamental fucking difference between aspirin you would buy at Dollar Tree and Bayer aspirin. The only fundamental fucking difference actually is the cost.
I thought you were going to say the Nazis.
That too.
Yeah.
But I figured that was
a given. Yeah.
I'm not going to give Bayer money, but I will buy
aspirin
from literally anyone else.
Well, technically, if you buy anyone else's aspirin, you are still technically giving, the Nazis.
I'm supporting the formula.
Yeah, you're supporting the formula
that off of it. They don't get a penny from it.
Well, no. I mean, you're supporting the fuck you effort of it.
Yeah,
because you're getting you're purchasing the formula that they had to release in order to continue staying around.
There you go. That's better.
Yeah, that's the words I was trying to find.
Okay.
Also, for anybody who uses metric system? Was
Yeah.
it? Yeah. It's 40 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, I mean, we have listeners in countries that do use the metric system.
Yeah.
Not to shit on you guys, but look, y'all know what's going on in America right now. Give me a fucking break. All right, let's go on to clip 5.
And to come up to them and say, okay, let me weigh this against another child who's getting plenty of vaccines. They simply do not want to discover the answer. And in my personal experience, again, I am not pointing you to a specific study when I say my personal experience has been that the unvaccinated children that I surround my children with are all unbelievably healthy. They are not chronically ill. They do not have tons of illnesses. They don't have any illnesses, actually. So I am even more affirmed in my decision not to vaccinate my children as I see them growing up. Now, there was a study recently which was quite shocking because, as I said, Big Pharma refuses to fund these studies, which did compare, back in 2020, unvaccinated children versus vaccinated children. And that study produced the result that unvaccinated children were, in fact, healthier. So it was an analysis of health outcomes in vaccinated and unvaccinated children. And what they discovered was that children that were vaccinated had a way higher incidence of developmental delays, asthma, ear infections, gastrointestinal disorders, and head injuries. So this study got done and it started making the rounds. And let me tell you what happened. Instantly, Big Pharma, via one of the websites that they own called healthfeedback.org. You may have heard of this website because it's one of the new ones that kind of was spawned through COVID. And behind it is the World Health Organization. They came out and basically said, don't pay attention to this study. Don't listen to this study because we believe that the people behind the study are biased because they do not believe that vaccines are good. Okay. Wouldn't there be implicit bias in all of the studies then? Because there are doctors that think that vaccines are good that conduct studies. So why can't we pay attention to doctors that are also doing studies that think vaccines are bad? So again, they didn't give any concrete answers for what was fundamentally wrong with the study. They just essentially said, don't pay attention to it because we don't really like the results of this. And of course, we say that it is unethical to even look at unvaccinated children. So you will see that over and over again, that they won't actually examine the children that, according to them, should be very sick. But
Yeah, okay, Candace. So about this study, let's discuss this shit. First, that study was conducted on information from 3 pediatric practices. It examined data about 5,000 kids provided to the study authors. What Candace is failing to mention is that the non-vaccinated kids were predominantly white, about 75% of them, and they lived in rural areas and suburbs. The vaccinated kids were predominantly non-white and lived in urban areas mostly. This put them not only around varied types of people, but also varied types of dwellings. We have to let a kitty in. Okay, the oldest one. Anyway, this put them around not only varied types of people, but also varied types of dwellings. I know from studies done over several decades as well that people that live in run-down buildings with roach issues often have a higher incidence of asthma. That fact was not taken into account in this study, among many other aspects of life disparities between the two groups, which is what healthfeedback.org took issue with as biases in the study results. That website, healthfeedback.org, by the way, is not a product of Big Pharma in the sense that Candace would like her listeners to believe it is. That website is based in France, part of a larger network of similar sites, and all of them are funded by health organizations that have clean funding, and they are also funded by small to large personal donations ranging from $5 to $5,000. There is no multi-billion-dollar money funding these things. The basic truth here is that the study proves what has been known for a long time regarding the state of vaccinated kids. They can still catch things and have health issues, but they are generally better off. Hospitalization rate differences, which Candace doesn't want to fuck with here, are vastly different. Non-vaccinated kids are actually hospitalized more often and with worse outcomes, often for worse reasons, than vaccinated kids. The main argument against a study like this is that hospitalization rates weren't taken into account, but also it can be used as a cudgel by people like Candace, who will call back to it alone as proof of their claims, without providing context for the cherry-picked data they will use. The next clip is 2.5 minutes long, and I am not sorry.
moving on, I want to jump into the disclaimer that is featured on all of the FDA inserts for the vaccines that you are administering your children. It's a very important disclaimer that you should be aware of. It says that the products have not been tested for carcinogenic effects. So essentially, we do not know if these vaccines cause cancer. That is what it is saying. And why is that important? Well, it's important because there has been an absolute explosion of childhood cancers which runs parallel to the explosion of childhood vaccines. So let's talk about that. In 1986, Congress passed the National Vaccine Injury Act, which established a federal no-fault system to compensate victims of injury caused by mandated vaccines. So essentially, you cannot sue the vaccine manufacturers if your children get harmed by vaccines, right? The taxpayer funds it. We pay for it, but you cannot go after the manufacturer. So I could not go after Gardasil for having injured me.
Bullshit.
Now, what's interesting is I wanted to explore this explosion of cancer rates, and it was very difficult to find. I went on the NIH website and I had to actually pay to access this full study for 24 hours online. You'll see this a lot. The deeper that you get into the web of Big Pharma, you will realize that a lot of the access to the information is behind a paywall. And so you have to have money to be able to become informed, which to me is so backwards. You have to pay money to be able to access studies so that you can make an informed decision. And I paid hundreds and hundreds of dollars simply to access studies. So what I found in this particular study, which I am sharing with you now, was that from the early 1980s to the early 1990s, the incidence of cancer in American children under 10 years of age rose 37%, or 3% annually. That is a huge explosion, okay? So from the early 1980s to the early 1990s, you had an explosion of childhood cancer rates to the tune of 37%. And this coincides, again, with the removal of blame, of fault, onto the vaccine manufacturers. This is when suddenly, remember, going back to that chart that we showed in the first episode, there was an explosion of vaccines. We went and said, okay, now we're just going to give kids so many vaccines because why not? We're not going to get in any trouble if the kids get harmed for it. So more vaccines, more vaccines, more vaccines, okay?
Yeah.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
She's one to talk about having to deal with a paywall to get to information.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I didn't think of that. Yeah. Yeah. God. So, first off, the disclaimer she mentioned about vaccines. Oh, but before I get into this, let me just say something I didn't think about when I was scripting out was she says that she can't sue Gardasil, but yet she has talked about how people are suing Merck for Gardasil.
Yeah.
You can totally sue.
If you have the valid information and injury.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that I haven't seen any of these Gardasil things disappear as settlements or anything, like, because they're largely bullshit.
Yeah.
Because no one was giving a crap about that until she got up and said, I got vaccine injured. Bitch, no you didn't.
Yeah.
We proved that in the first episode, but anyway. So first off, the disclaimer she mentioned about vaccines not being tested for carcinogens is not on every vaccine. Some have been tested, but most have not, and this is because the elements in the vaccines are not known carcinogens. The explosion of childhood cancer she talks about running parallel to vaccine acceptance is, of course, false. Candace does what she does, but the study she mentions that she spent so much money on, I was able to get for free with a little work. I could have also paid $42 to access it for 24 hours, but I'm smarter than her entire crew, I guess, or just lucky, maybe both. Anyway, the study was done comparing rates of cancer among children from the 80s through the 90s. So that is true, and the cancer rate did increase 3% every year in the groups studied. But the best part is that it also kind of proves some of the points we have already brought up. The kids in the study were infants. Cancer in babies sucks, and some of them were more in the toddler range, but almost none of them were at age for most vaccines they would have gotten in later years. However, the incidence of cancer was highest among the non-vaccinated white rural babies. You get that? The incidence of cancer was highest among the non-vaccinated white rural babies. I can think of a few reasons for this. An obvious one, not cited in the study at all, not directly anyway, was the Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island meltdowns. 3 Mile Island happened in New Jersey in 1979, and Chernobyl happened in 1986. I'm only bringing those up because the specific cancers mentioned in the study are known to be caused by radiation exposure.
And as it was noted for the Chernobyl, not even just including 3 Mile Island, but Chernobyl alone fucking pumped out
A lot.
a lot of fucking radiation that was deemed because the lethal dosage of radiation. I had to look this up the other day. Oh, I didn't have to. I wanted to. I was playing No Man's Sky and got curious. Let me pull it up. It should be right here because I wanted to know what the lethal dose of radiation was.
Yeah. Okay. This is great pod.
Sorry.
Great pod happening right now. Incredible pod. Bigly pod. The best pod. Big, beautiful pod.
Fucking god damn it! Why won't it give me the thing?
Is it the BBC? No, it's the BBP.
Ah, there we are.
There we
Lethal
go.
dose of radigens. Okay, so exposure is 400 radigens is how much we can handle.
Okay.
That's the lethal dose, and
I would say that the lethal dose is 400, then how much we can handle is like 399.
I mean that's fair. And the estimated radigens, I hope I'm saying that right. Radigens?
See. I think it's Rentgens.
Radigens.
Yeah. Roentgens.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway. Yeah.
The amount of radiation that was pumping out for this at Chernobyl was 5.6 per second, with over 20,000 per hour.
Wow.
Going up into the sky, into the clouds, and raining back down on everything within a several 100-mile radius.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's safe to assume that caused a lot of cancers, considering after that was when the cancers really started spiking.
Yeah.
Radiation-based, anyway.
Well, like I said, the specific cancers mentioned in the study are known to be caused by radiation exposure. It does mention possible radiation exposure in the study.
Oh, yeah.
There are numerous possible causes for this, of course, and it's a hard one to definitively pin down, but the childhood rate of cancer slowed over time. I just want to note that cancer rate was lowest among children that were able to get vaccines, typically in urban areas. A factor listed for more cancer possibility in rural areas is also less access to quality health care providers. It should be noted that cancer rates in older children rose too, but not nearly as many were reported. But again, vaccinated children showed up with less cancer overall than non-vaccinated kids. And since kids can typically get vaccines in public school systems, this kind of plays out in the vaccine's favor and public health incentives. The data proves the point that the 16 to 18 vaccine doses administered to kids may be more beneficial than just protecting against certain diseases. But let's allow her to keep going now that you're all armed with this knowledge. Listen to how she will use this information to sucker people. It would be fascinating if it were not horrifying. Okay, so here we go with the next clip.
This is according to that exact same NIH website study. It reads, there is an inverse correlation between increases in cancer rates and age at diagnosis. The largest rise, 54%, occurred in children that were diagnosed before their first birthday. That's incredible. So the largest explosion of cancer rates were taking place, 54% increase within 1 decade for children before their first birthday. Now, what are a lot of children doing before their first birthday? Well, one thing that we know is that they're getting tons of vaccines. You're constantly going back to the doctor's office to give your children vaccines. Rates rose for all 11 states and cities included in the analysis. A jump in cancer rates for children born between 1982 to 1983 was followed by a drop But another abrupt rise took place from 1986 to 1987. The birth cohort has been sustained thereafter. The results indicate that the rising childhood cancer rate represents a far more serious problem in the United States than previous reports have suggested. The methodology used here adds 3 additional states and cities, analyzes children under 10 rather than under 15, begins the analysis in 1980 rather than 1973, and extends the study to 1993, which may partially account for the new findings. Okay, now I want to tell you some other things that you should know about just the explosion of cancer rates. Leukemia is the most common cancer that is found in children. Leukemia has risen 35% since 1975. Similarly, non-Hodgkin lymphoma has jumped 34% since 1975. Soft tissue cancers has jumped 42%. Now, this article says there is, quote, no apparent explanation for these trends. I'm going to tell you that. The experts say there's no apparent explanation for the trends. Isn't that something?
Yeah, it is something. And actually looking into this as I did, childhood leukemia and non-Hodgkin lymphoma, also known as NHL in some cases, as well as tissue cancers that she mentioned, have a higher survivability or mortality rate these days compared to the 1970s. But also, vaccinated kids tend to get them less and survive them better after diagnosis. Again, proving the point by just scratching the surface.
No apparent explanation for the trends. Now, something that I can think of is I don't know a single adult that keeps up with their vaccinations. You do it because you're forced to do it when you're a child in order to go to school, in order to enroll in soccer, in order to enroll in dance. You have to be up on your vaccines. But then when you become an adult, you go, okay, I don't need to go this anymore, so why would I? Why would I go and inject myself and make myself sick? Maybe you have the occasional adult who might keep up with their flu shot, but as a whole, you would agree with me that adults are not keeping up on their tetanus shots and their diphtheria shots. They're just kind of living their lives. But, as I said, there is no apparent explanation for these trends.
Yes, there is. Because most vaccines administered in childhood can last a lifetime or several decades. Vaccines for measles, mumps and rubella, chickenpox, hepatitis B are often good for a person's remaining lifespan. Tetanus and diphtheria each last for about 10 years. I have been given these on visits to hospitals, typically on the heels of me being involved in something stupid. But others, such as whooping cough or pertussis, pneumococcal vaccines, those can last anywhere from 5 to 10 years. Rotavirus or common cold and flu vaccines can last anywhere from a few months to a few years because these problems mutate and the vaccines are basically inert that quickly. I'm not surprised that Candace would either not know these basics or would pretend to not know these basics. But hey, let's move on to an even dumber argument. This one against the FDA.
She's clearly never been to the hospital for doing anything physical, because I mean, anytime I've been either to the hospital with one of you guys,
Yeah.
or somebody comes back from the hospital, and it's like, oh yeah, you know, I dropped a hot, don't rub on that squish. I dropped a hot bolt down my boot, and you know, they asked me if I didn't have my tetanus shot or not, so they went ahead and gave it to me anyway. It's like, yeah, you know, when you come in for something that's an open wound or a large burn, they go, are you up on your tetanus shot? I don't know. Let's just go ahead and... And if you are up on your tetanus shot, well, you're definitely up now.
Yeah. Like,
And it's never draining either.
Yeah, well, here we go. Let's go into her dumber argument against the FDA.
But this sort of reminds me of when you see language like that, no explanation for these trends, there's no correlation, don't look here. It reminds me of America in the 1940s when our FDA absolutely refused to look into cigarettes, right? Big tobacco, forget Big Pharma, there was Big Tobacco. And Big Tobacco had lobbyists, and Big Tobacco had people that were on their payroll. You had doctors, this is crazy, doctors that were featured in ads smoking, telling people that the smoking was absolutely fine. Trust the science. Of course, you trust the doctors. you should trust the money. Who is accepting money from these people that have a lot of it to spend? And for decades, they allowed people to get sick. They knew that this was causing cancer. There's no question they knew that smoking was bad, but the FDA decided to look the other way. What they stated was that there was no known correlation between cancer and cigarettes. There was no known correlation. And what that usually means when they tell you that there's no known correlation is that they're not looking, therefore it must not be there. That's sort of their logic. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back in just a second.
Okay, it's about time we brought up the FDA. So the FDA first asserted jurisdiction over tobacco products in 1995. This is when they declared nicotine to be a drug, and they proposed regulation to classify cigarettes as drug delivery devices. President William Jefferson, otherwise known as Bill the Thrill Clinton, agreed, and he approved the action in 1996. However, the Supreme Court invalidated the FDA regulations in the year 2000 when they stated that Congress had not given the FDA authority over tobacco. They would not get that authority for almost another 9 years. In 2009, the FDA was allowed to regulate tobacco products with the establishment of the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act, which gave the FDA comprehensive control over tobacco manufacturing, marketing, and distribution. I'd like to point out that the first attempt to break the hold of big tobacco was from a president who was famously accused of using a cigar as a dildo on an intern, and then famously he chewed on it but didn't smoke it. Said it tasted good. Yep, that's what he did. But he did try to get tobacco regulated. And then the next Democrat in the White House, Barack Obama, also worked to get it regulated. I'd like to point out that no Republicans ever did. But anyway, what held up the government from getting tobacco regulated? Well, for a long time, the FDA thought it lacked the authority to regulate tobacco under the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. Tobacco was not explicitly categorized as a drug or a device itself under the FDCA, and various courts upheld that definition for decades. Also, lobbyists pressured people in Congress to leave tobacco alone for several decades. If Congress and the Senate and the office of the President weren't going to touch it, and the courts pushed back on regulation attempts, there wasn't much that the FDA could do about it. It actually wasn't until the 1990s that evidence emerged showing that tobacco was, in fact, very addictive, and that it was often manipulated in processing by the tobacco companies to make it more so in various ways. Public outcry about the obvious lung cancer and related conditions such as emphysema finally started making people in government show concern in the 90s. The FDA was on record for decades with being stymied in their efforts to go after big tobacco. All of that is public record stuff, and none of it requires a FOIA request. Moving on, Candace does throw to an ad in the next clip. I'm only playing it for the sake of being able to say that I cut as little as possible from this.
Hey guys, I hope you're loving this series as much as I love doing it. There is a lot of information in each episode, so we have to put it all in one place for you on our show Instagram page. So you can go ahead and give it a follow. That's at Shot in the Dark DW+. We will be posting all the links, graphics, and some clip excerpts on that page, so it will definitely be a useful resource as we navigate all of these topics together. Please make sure to comment on that page or email me at Candace@dailywire.com to share your thoughts on the series or ask any questions that you may have. I will definitely be sharing them, and I can't wait to hear from you. So it's just a vitamin, guys. It's just a vitamin. That is what my doctor, and I know many other doctors all across America, are saying to people, and saying to expectant parents when they discuss what they want to, whether they want to have vaccines or not have vaccines administered to their children. And so we were very clear we wanted no vaccines administered to my son. And my gynecologist looked at me and said, okay, but the vitamin K shot, I mean, that one's just a vitamin. Who would deny their child a vitamin? In fact, this position of it just being a vitamin and how good, of course, vitamins are, is so impressed upon not just parents, but it has now polluted the political environment because now you have states where you are not allowed to deny the just a vitamin for your child. In New York State, if you give birth, you must allow your child to be given the vitamin K shot. It's just a vitamin, they said, right? Well, we're going to look into that. We're going to explore that.
Yeah, let's do that, Candace. New York is the only state that requires this, and it must be done within 6 hours of birth. This is done to prevent vitamin K deficiency bleeding, which is a highly fatal condition caused by insufficient vitamin K, which is essential for blood clotting. That mandate was introduced after a lengthy review of infant deaths and hospitalizations showed that 65% of those deaths and hospitalizations involved newborns who did not receive it or only received it after the onset of hemorrhages. This condition can lead to severe complications, such as intracranial hemorrhage, brain damage, and, of course, death. The law is there because the shot has been proven safe and effective in reducing the underlying causes of the vitamin K deficiency risks. Took her all that time to get to vitamin K.
Wasn't that the whole headliner of this?
Yes.
Ow, cat, your claws.
Okay, next up.
I'm going to tell you a story about two people, Angela and Brian Bowers. They are from Illinois. In 2017, they gave birth to their fifth child. So this is not their first rodeo. It's a daughter named Glory. Minutes after she was born, doctors took her away for 12 hours. It's hyper unusual. Why did they take little Glory away for 12 hours? Could you imagine doctors taking your newborn away and for 12 hours you don't see your newborn? Mind-boggling. What happened next was that a caseworker showed up from the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services. Why? Because what Angela and Brian did was they refused the vitamin K shot. They were eventually given their child back. They went home, and then 2 weeks later, 3 police cars pulled up to their house, unannounced, and they asked to see all of their children. Because she had also declined the vitamin K shot for her other 4 children, but at the time they were living in Wisconsin, so the police hadn't shown up. But this is in Illinois, it's a little bit different. So it's thug life. That now the police are here to explore why you denied this just a vitamin for your children. Same thing happened to a couple. They're named Courtney Hill and James Holderman. They were also in Illinois. Both of them were then investigated. Both of these couples were investigated for weeks. DCFS determined that both cases of neglect were completely unfounded. Soon after that, in August of 2018, a DCFS memo surfaced rescinding the policy altogether. It was a policy which required that medical professionals file a report whenever parents refuse the vitamin K shots. It's so stunning to consider this happening, and I'm telling you these stories. And when we first did A Shot in the Dark and I told the stories, I never thought that this would happen to me. And
so, if you want to look up the story of this family, listeners, the family name is spelled Bougher. I'm spelling this out because I spelled it wrong when I originally went looking for the story to read more about what happened. The family story is pretty much as Candace described for both families, and both families did sue the state of Illinois over religious grounds, or over what happened. In the Bowers case, they rejected the vitamin K shot on religious grounds because they're kind of fucking stupid. An actual quote from the couple, according to the website Catholic News Agency, quote, "If God created every baby with a certain amount of vitamin K, then that's what they need at birth," end quote. Like, I have known people this dumb across several religions, but this is a special kind of stupid.
It's not like, what is it, Mormons who deny blood transfusion?
I'm not sure if Mormons do. I know Jehovah's Witnesses.
That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
They don't fuck with blood transfusions, but yeah, I'm not sure if anybody else is that way about it. I'm sure they are.
Oh yeah.
But here's the next clip.
I am not going to divulge the full story in today's episode. I will do it in a later episode, but it did happen to me here in the state of Tennessee when I refused actually something for myself with my perfectly healthy daughter. They used the same tactics. They said to me, "Well, we can have DCFS show up at your house." And we left the hospital. We signed something that said we're happy to have DCFS come to my house, and we walked out. Now, fortunately, they actually never came. But this sort of thuggery taking place in order to get your children injected is insane.
Yeah, Candace is lying again. Because there's no way the whole Department of Children and Families thing happened to her. That last part is most assuredly bullshit. I'll explain. In Tennessee, parents of newborns may sign a waiver declining the vitamin K shot, and they are informed of the risks for doing so. There is no threat laid down about calling authorities, and in most cases this doesn't happen unless medical professionals have a reason to believe parental neglect is actually happening. It appears in well under less than 1% of cases. It should be noted that parents rejecting the shots were linked to clusters of vitamin K deficiency bleeding, or VKDB, cases happening across the state of Tennessee in 2013, noted by the CDC at the time. In every case, the infants were not injected after birth per standard practice. The thing with VKDB is that it can occur from anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months after birth, and usually presents as either brain hemorrhage or gastrointestinal bleeding by the time parents get a kid to the hospital. VKDB is basically a clotting problem, whereby little ones can't clot effectively. Now Candace is going to get into something she does to set her listeners up for failure. It's a common tactic among these grifters, and it's easy to see from this angle. She's going to basically tell them at the start of the next clip that they are good and informed and smart, smarter even than the medical professionals. I would like to find it laughable that Candace is even encouraging listeners to even give birth in a hospital or medical center in the first place, in any case. Wouldn't it be easier to just do it at home? You don't have to worry about leaving the hospital with DCFC on your ass if you're never in there to begin with. Mm-hmm. That part would be at least ideologically consistent. But after buttering her audience up, she gets into the meat of this episode. Now that the audience's brains have been pummeled with stories of families fighting off the cops and doctors and the courts, now that she has appealed to their intelligence and bravery, now she gets to the heart of it.
I mean, to think that they will pretend that you are neglecting your child because you are making a decision, and most times people that are making these decisions are the most educated about these shots, about these just vitamins, about these vaccines, not the opposite, okay? People are not going to try to intentionally harm their newborn children, but you have this taking place. DCFS comes in if they believe a case to be life-threatening, and I now want to get into why on earth they would think that a case would be life-threatening if you declined this just a vitamin. Well, it is a stunning lie for me to look back on, thinking about my gynecologist, who I liked very much, by the way, telling me that this one was shrug just a vitamin, because it is anything but. And what we're going to do right now is we are going to look into the FDA insert of this just a vitamin. So here you can see, by the way, this is the neonatal concentration of phytonadione, right? That is your vitamin K1 injection. And very clearly listed, which is what you are not allowed to be given when you are in the hospital, depending on where you live, or I don't know a single person who receives this when they're in the hospital, is this warning that is listed straight away on the package. It says, severe reactions, including fatalities, have occurred during and immediately after intravenous injection of aquamethicin, which is phytonadione, even when precautions have been taken to dilute the product and to avoid rapid infusion. Severe reactions, including fatalities, have also been reported following intramuscular administration. Typically, these severe reactions have resembled hypersensitivity or anaphylaxis, including shock and cardiac and or respiratory arrest. Some patients have exhibited these severe reactions on receiving aquamethicin for the first time. Therefore, the intravenous and intramuscular routes should be restricted to those situations where the subcutaneous route is not feasible and the serious risk involved is considered justified. So just imagine that your children are being given a dose of something where the label clearly says your child can die. That's it. This is what the warning on this is, and you can find this on the FDA website, says that when administered to your child can die of this. Okay.
Yeah, so about the fatality risk. There has been only one death reported from anaphylactic shock with a vitamin K injection. One. Noted in 2014 by the National Institutes of Health. One death. which is tragic, but it is the entire reason the warning is on the paperwork. If that one death had not happened, the warning would not be there. One severe reaction resulting in death is pretty good for a medical practice designed to save lives since 1961.
Yeah.
But this also hits on another point that we've made before, but I'll repeat as often as I feel I need to, which is that the lingering after effects of getting something like VKDB can be severe. This is brain hemorrhaging and or gut bleeding that we're talking about here. This can be traumatic for survivors and their families to deal with, since long-term brain damage occurs in about 40% of infants that get this, which can lead to developmental delays, seizures, motor impairments, and cognitive disabilities. Fortunately, there seems to be little evidence of gastrointestinal issues causing long-term damage with VKDB. But honestly, brain damage is bad enough. But Candace only focuses on the known risk of anaphylactic shock, which has caused one fatality since 1961. But here she is with more.
Okay. Imagine living in a state where you have no choice but to subject your infant to this risk, right? They don't care. They just say, you have to, it's just a vitamin. But it's so clearly not just a vitamin. This is not just a vitamin, because just a vitamin wouldn't lead to this sort of a warning label, right? If you were just giving your child vitamin K, do you think that they would have this severe of a warning? So let's actually look into what ingredients are in this. It says that it contains, of course, we know the main thing. It contains polyoxyethylated fatty acid derivatives, dextrose, hydrose, benzyl alcohol added as a preservative. It may contain hydrochloric acid for pH adjustment. Does any of that sound to you like it's just a vitamin? Why are doctors allowed to look you in the face and lie to you?
Go ahead.
Okay. See, with how she pauses in her speech, I swear she's getting a big ass lungful of breath, because she'll like pause and I'll think, okay, it's over, and then she'll start speaking again. But no, hydrose and dextrose, as much as I hate to say this, sound like either hero or villain names.
Right. I mean, dextrose might be a hero name. I mean, but doctors aren't lying.
Yeah.
In the vitamin K shot, most of what is there, which she didn't mention, is water. 88% of it is water. That is followed by polyoxyethylated fatty acid. Let me say that word right. Polyoxyethylated fatty acid derivative at 7%. Okay, that's 95% now.
Mm-hmm.
This helps keep the vitamin K mixed with everything else. The next is dextrose at 3.75% of the shot, which keeps it stabilized. Benzyl alcohol at less than 0.9% acts as a preservative. And finally, the actual vitamin K, which is only 0.2% of the overall formula. Hydrochloric acid is only there in trace amounts to manage pH adjustments from the lab, to ensure each vial of each batch is exactly like what came before. But all of those ingredients are right there in the information given to parents, and I've never met a doctor unwilling to explain this basic shit to a patient. If all of this sounds scary to you, then you should know that if administered as a supplement, it's all basically the same thing. As an oral supplement, it's all basically the same thing, with olive oil taking the place of the polyoxyethylated fatty acid in a gel cap. An obvious question as a follow-up to this might be, well, why don't we just give infants an oral version rather than a shot in the leg? The easiest answer is that it is often easier to just administer the shot, since the ideal time to do it is within 6 hours of birth. When an infant is ready to feed, it could be well past the time, and the body's absorption rate of the oral medicine, which they would be able to spit out even in the best case scenario, the absorption of vitamin K orally often requires several doses to be effective. This is one shot.
Yeah, and several doses could be an accidental OD if that's even an issue.
And it'll come up later, but if you overdose, it can actually work against
what you're trying to do.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I think Squish wants out.
I think cat want out now. Come on, Kate.
At least she didn't bang her head on the door this time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's play the next clip. As soon as I get back in the chair here. Okay.
It's a lie to tell any parent that what they are administering to their child is just a vitamin and it carries no risk, and yet they lie repeatedly. Do you want to know what one of the biggest risks are, by the way? Again, this is from the FDA website that comes with the vitamin. What comes with the vitamin K shot, the Just a Vitamin K shot? Hyperbilirubinemia, also known as severe jaundice. You might be aware that there has been an explosion of children who are full term that suddenly are having extreme jaundice. It seems very odd to me that so many children are suddenly having jaundice. And it's definitely a plausibility, at the very least, that this jaundice is being directly caused by the pediatric use of this product. Here it is. It is listed right here on the website. Hemolysis, jaundice, and hyperbilirubinemia in newborns, particularly in premature infants, may be related to this dose of aquamephatin. Therefore, the recommended dose should not be exceeded.
You folks catch that last part?
Its recommended dose shouldn't be exceeded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope the listeners caught it. All that shit she described is in the literature that she was reading from, and it makes it clear that the dose is the dose. Do not overdose. It's pretty fucking clear on what all the risks of an overdose are. Mm-hmm. You absolutely can overdose on vitamins, and I've done it before with B-complex vitamins. Here's a personal story. I was trying to beat a drug test, and I was told that if I took several thousand milligrams of B-complex vitamin and drank plenty of water, I could beat or throw off the drug test, which was a urinalysis. So I did just that. And I took an ungodly amount. Let me tell you, it felt like I had swallowed the fucking sun. When you see a vampire get burned in a show like True Blood, it felt like that. Like a sunburn on the inside of my body. It was fucking horrible. I was running hot, my skin got fiery red, and I just kept drinking water. It felt like I was on fire for hours. I did beat the drug test a few days later, and the symptoms did subside, but I probably should have checked in at a hospital. I didn't, but I also didn't drink or smoke anything for about 2 months, didn't take any over-the-counter meds. I was so worried I had damaged myself, I didn't want anything to tip the scale. Dosages exist for reasons, even and especially with vitamins.
Yeah, I learned that problem when I was taking the B-complex vitamins, but I wasn't doing a whole lot to like warrant the dosage I was taking. I was taking 2 of those complex ones. Dosage was 1, but 2 was, evening me out and keeping me awake. And then after like 5 days, I got the jitters out of nowhere, and I was sitting there and I'm like, I'm really warm, feel really jittery. I'm sweating like fucking crazy, and I told Mom about it, and Mom looked at me and she's like, "What did you take?" And I was like, two tablets of the B complex, and she's like, "How?" And when was the last time you took it? Yesterday, for like the past week, and she's like, "That's where you fucked up."
Yeah, yeah. Because here's the thing: is that B vitamin it will come out through your urine.
Yeah.
And it will make your urine look like Mountain Dew.
Yeah. I also haven't. I didn't have that much water when I was doing that as well.
Yeah. That's about the only thing you can do is to help pass it through is just chug water. When I was trying to beat the drug test, I'm fairly certain I took anywhere from 12 to 24 pills.
Jesus fuck.
At once.
What the fuck?
See, when I was a kid, right? My parents were vitamin salespeople for a short time. Mm-hmm. So, I had, at one time in my life, I swear to God, they had given me, now, everyone in my school was also part of the same, my church cult school. All the other kids there, their parents were part of the same, vitamin sales club company called Shackley. Weird name. It's actually someone's last name. But anyway, so they were all part of this thing. Yeah. And so everybody took something for something. Like, well, I got sent to school with a bag of pills in my lunch. That wasn't weird to anybody.
Yeah.
All of them were on something, like they could identify what I was taking. They were like, "Oh, you got the B complex, you got the multivitamin in there. Oh God, you got the lecithin." The lecithin pill was like comparable to a horse pill. It was huge. It was this huge gel cap. Well, there was also alfalfa in there. There was like several other things. Anyway, so I would look at this bag of vitamins, and I was like, I could take these one at a time, and I could be here for 10 minutes, or I could train myself to take them all at once. So what do you think I did? So I remember one time, this one girl, her mother was the vitamin salesperson to everyone else. Mm-hmm. Her mother, I used to hang out with her brother a lot. He was cool, but anyway, she watched me and she's like, "You were not," like I got the handful.
Yeah.
I got the fucking handful. She's like, "You were not going to take all those at once." I was like, "Watch me."
Oh, God.
And I put them all in my mouth. I was like a chipmunk. And I had like a Coca-Cola. And I just started chugging and swallowing. And she watched. And she's like, "That's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen." I was like, "What?" Like I burped. And I was like, What are you talking about? And she goes, "I watched your throat expand like a snake several times." I was like, "Well, you didn't have to watch." I didn't hold a gun to your head. You didn't have to watch. She's like, "I wanted to make sure you didn't choke." I was like, "Look, I learned how to do this at home like a week ago. Like this is nothing." And she goes, "Oh my God." But yeah, like I learned how to take those. Well, fast forward a couple decades and I'm sitting there and I'm going, I could take all 24 of these, or I could just take them all 24 of these. So that's what I did. And like I said, I massively overdosed myself on the B vitamins, and good God, I've never done that since, and I will never do that again.
Yeah.
I avoid B complex pills for that reason. I'm like, no. My liver has likely received a shotgun blast of those due to my own. No, never again. Nope.
Yep.
Nope, I do not fucks with it. Yeah.
See, the only time I fucks with any B complex is if it's like been especially gloomy for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm just feeling tired and I'm on my third cup of coffee and my fourth cup of tea. I'll just go, you know what? Fuck it. I'll take one. And that usually chippers me up.
Yeah. Well, let's go into the next clip.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you will also note on the FDA insert, as I told you, virtually all of them say that they have not tested them for cancer. They can't tell you that what they're giving your child does not cause cancer. It says right here, studies of carcinogenicity, mutagenesis, or impairment of fertility have not been conducted with aquamethicillin. That means we don't know whether this causes cancer. We don't know whether or not this will mutate your genes, and we do not know whether or not this will impair your child's fertility.
There are studies, and this would be absurd if true. Studies have been done long-term on babies injected with vitamin K, and they found no more or less risk of cancers from the vitamin K shot. These studies have been done on different groups since the late 1950s. I pulled up one such study on a website called Open Access Journals, and of course the study itself has links to its sources, all of which are journal articles. The fact is, the medical community reviews these kinds of things constantly, since new data is found every year about cause and effect relationships, and that kind of thing can challenge old assertions. It is the most basic function of science and why it is so valuable.
Mom just let a cat in.
Next, Candace goes off on a tangent for about 3.5 minutes.
Again, I have not seen a single vaccine insert that does not carry this, that they have not even looked into it. We haven't even studied it. So it is stunning then that what is on the FDA insert goes directly against what is listed on the CDC website. So we have a question posted on the website. It says, what is vitamin K and how do low levels of vitamin K and vitamin K deficiency bleeding occur in babies? And the answer that their website provides says, vitamin K is used by the body to form clots and to stop bleeding. Babies are born with very little vitamin K stored in their bodies. This is called vitamin K deficiency and means that a baby has low levels of vitamin K. Without enough vitamin K, babies cannot make the substances used to form clots, called clotting factors. When bleeding happens because of low levels of vitamin K, this is called vitamin K deficiency bleeding, or VKDB. VKDB is a serious and potentially life-threatening cause of bleeding in infants up to 6 months of age. A vitamin K shot given at birth is the best way to prevent low levels of vitamin K and vitamin K deficiency bleeding. Okay, so a couple things I want to say to that. First and foremost, everything is always very life-threatening and very emotional. What kind of horrific would say no? It's going to help your child be able to clot. But the implication here is that human babies are born wrong, right? And we're going to talk about this extensively in the next episode, because the reason why they push the vitamin K shot is because we are uniquely doing something in America that is not done all across the world, which is that we are circumcising infants right out of the womb, okay? But pause that and park it aside, because what the implication here is, what the Big Pharma is saying, is that we realize that babies were born wrong. They don't have enough vitamin K, and so we're going to give them what they've always needed. God's design is wrong. I always try to apply it logically to, like, if you saw animals in the wild, like, if we realized giraffes don't have enough vitamin A when they were born. We realize that dogs just don't have enough vitamin D. What are you saying here? The natural order of things is wrong. If all babies are not born with something, right, that probably means that all babies do not need that something that they are born with. Again, I don't want to get ahead of myself here. We are going to talk about why it is that they have this fear of babies bleeding and this unnatural thing in the form of us circumcising children right out of the womb. Vitamin K stores go up after the 8th day, hence brisses, and the Jewish faith, they wait until the 8th day to circumcise them. There is something to that. But again, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Just think about the implication here being that your baby was simply born wrong, and here's how we're going to fix it. We're going to put a bunch of chemicals in their body, and these chemicals may or may not have your baby just suddenly stop breathing. Yeah, your baby could stop breathing, but it doesn't matter, because you don't have a choice here in the matter. You're in New York, you're in California, you will give this to your child, and if your child suffers from extreme jaundice, or if your baby drops dead, too bad, so sad. Trust us, we are the doctors. Let's keep reading on the CDC website.
Yeah, the parents pay the moil, and he gets to keep the tip because he's pretty fly for a rabbi. Many thanks to Weird Al Yankovic. Anyway, as usual, Candace is wrong, and possibly anti-Semitic with this one. Religious communities have treated vitamin K shots often as a beneficial gift from their divine beings of worship, proving to themselves that the knowledge was released from on high, or whatever. The whole thing about a baby getting elevated levels of vitamin K that would be safe enough to do a proper bris are bullshit. In the 4,000 years that bris were performed before vitamin K shots were available, VKDB was a problem without a name. But there was a lot of focus during moil training to be precise and quick about the rite of passage, and if bleeding occurs, there have always been ways to deal with it, but some infants would die from a bris. Some of those methods were pretty fucking bad, and some were traditional wound medicine. Wrap the wound, use an herb compress, and so on. I am hoping we don't have to get into the worst versions of that. Anyway, a baby without a vitamin K shot that undergoes a bris can bleed out to death. The whole thing about babies having elevated levels of vitamin K after 8 days is something these jackoffs tell themselves. The fact is, babies don't develop the level of vitamin K that is in any way comparable to the shot for several months. Hardcore Jewish communities typically are not anti-vax and have no problem with the vitamin K shot at birth, which I would think would lead someone like Candace, who believes that Jews have superior knowledge of their family lines and are always seen as control of this or that. I would think that somewhere in that just rattling cage, they would see value in being similarly defended against the ravages of nature, as the Jews do. The dumb shit it takes to be anti-vax astounds me. Candace continues reading from the CDC website.
They have another question. It says, I heard that the vitamin K shot might cause cancer. Is this true? Answer, no. In the early 1990s, a small study in England found an association between the vitamin K shot and childhood cancer. An association means that two things are happening at the same time in the same person, but that doesn't tell us whether one causes the other. Figuring out whether vitamin K might cause childhood cancer was very important because every newborn is expected to get a vitamin K shot. If vitamin K was causing cancer, we would expect to see the same association in other groups of children. Scientists looked to see if they could find the same association in other children, but this association between vitamin K and childhood cancer was never found again in any other study. Two things happening there. First, they didn't debunk the study. They said it was never found again. Second,
it doesn't say what she just said. She read most of the statement from the CDC website, but she intentionally fucked up the very end. I will read it in full. Question. I heard that the vitamin K shot might cause cancer. Is this true? Answer. No. In 1990, a small study in England found an association between the vitamin K shot and childhood cancer. An association means that two things are happening at the same time in the same person, but doesn't tell us whether one causes the other. Figuring out whether vitamin K might cause childhood cancer was very important because every newborn is expected to get a vitamin K shot. If vitamin K was causing cancer, we would expect to see the same association in other groups of children. Candace read all of that, but here is what she intentionally lied about. Scientists have conducted multiple larger studies to see if they could find the same association in other children, but they have found no evidence supporting the link between vitamin K and childhood cancer. I gave her the grace that this was recorded a couple of years ago, and I went to archived versions of the page. It hasn't changed in several years. On top of that, I went looking for evidence of her claim anyway, and I found several studies about the vitamin K shot being a link to cancer, and it has been thoroughly debunked each time. One such test actually had some tragedies involved in England. They decided to not give vitamin K shots to anyone but those they considered under the most risk. And of course, they wound up with a massive increase of VKDB cases. Many of those were fatal. Many large studies have been done on this, and I expect more will be done over time, because again, that is the nature of science. But here is more bullshit.
how can they answer that question, does it cause cancer, with no? Let's revert back to that FDA insert, where it clearly says that they have not studied this for carcinogenic effect. So how does the CDC become the authority over the actual insert, which tells us we haven't tested this for cancer? We don't know if it causes cancer. But don't ask questions, guys. Remember from last week's episode, doctors don't want you to feel empowered to ask questions. So even though you can clearly read on the FDA insert that they cannot tell you whether or not it causes cancer, they cannot tell you whether or not it impacts your fertility, you're just going to have to trust the CDC when they say no. Because they looked into it, because it sounded very scary, and they determined that they never saw that connection ever again in any study, but in one that was done in England that they did not work to debunk.
Bullshit.
Does that concern you?
No.
It should concern you, okay?
Nope.
When what they are saying flies in conflict, when the FDA insert flies in conflict with the very patronizing language that's taking place on the CDC to speak to you like you're a child and you can't understand, you should be concerned. I am concerned. I am concerned that doctors can look you in the eye after we just read those ingredients and say to you that it's just a vitamin. Why lie? Why lie? Why on earth would you lie? If there is a chance that a child can die from this injection, then the parents must have choice. Now let's look again back to the FDA insert.
So yeah, about that FDA insert language. The FDA has not studied the effects of this as a cancer-causing thing because that's not what they do with vitamins like this. However, and I think this is one source of Candace's rage, the FDA does look into the manufacture and safety of mass-produced vitamin supplements. We haven't covered it in a while, but Candace does shill for vitamin companies on her show, such as the Wellness Company, who some of you may remember.
I fucking forgot about them. I intentionally forgot about them.
Yeah. I wish I could.
God, I wish she could just slot her fucking ads better. That's something that still bothers me.
Her people suck. Yeah, her production team sucks ass. I hope you all heard that. I hope if any of you listen and you work in Candace's production, you properly shame yourselves by, like, I don't know, fucking a cactus every night.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I want them to be. See, if they fuck a cactus every night, maybe they can't produce children. We don't need more of them.
I was going to say...
I'm not into eugenics, but we don't need more of the people that would choose to work for Candace Owens. People that would choose to get a paycheck from Candace Owens, and similarly, thusly, choose to live in Tennessee around Candace Owens.
See, I thought you were going to say...
sorry, Nashville.
Have, like, 2-hour-long post-nut clarity or something.
No. I don't think they have post-nut clarity.
Fair enough.
No, I don't
You don't think they jack one out and then immediately cry themselves to sleep?
I mean, yeah, because
that kind of post-nut
okay, if they're
clarity.
neo-Catholics, masturbation's wrong. So you might be onto something. You know? Nut, cry, sleep.
Nut, cry,
sleep. And if they're guys, wake up. Morning wood. I can't do anything with you. It's not bedtime. What do? They smack it around. You know? Little self-flagellation. I mean, I'm just guessing.
Do they need to scream
come into the
"Forgive
mindset
me,
that-
Lord" at the same time while they're doing it because they might get off on it?
Oh, yeah, no. Maybe they watch some gay porn, to tone it down, make it go away, I mean,
But what do they do when it doesn't go down?
they seek confession?
I mean, they're. I almost said the rabbi probably already knows they're gay, but no,
They're priest.
Priest,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, sorry,
They're
Jews.
neo-Catholic
Sorry.
priest. I'm not sorry about anything with the neo-Catholics.
No, I said sorry, Jews.
Oh, yeah, no.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
God, I hope no Jewish people work for her.
I don't think.
I don't think she'd hire them knowingly.
I don't think they'd work for her knowingly unless they're slowly trying to collect evidence to fuck her life up completely.
God, that would be great. In that case, if any of you are listening to this and that's your goal in life, good for you. I'm sorry about telling you to fuck a cactus.
I mean,
But only you.
Also about
I'm gonna
post-nut
guess
clarity that makes you cry after one.
No, they're still getting a paycheck from the devil. We don't need
Fair
to give
enough.
them total grace.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, you gotta cry yourself to sleep after you jack one out.
Yeah. I don't know. Fuck some drywall or something.
What the fuck?
So anyway, about that FDA insert language. The FDA has not studied this as a cancer-causing thing because that's not what they do with vitamins like this. I read all that. Okay. Candace, you may remember, sells a kit filled with things like ivermectin and antibiotics.
Yeah.
And they sell all kinds of vitamin blends too. And they are not cheap.
Nope.
I went looking on their website. A 30-day supply of any one of their blends will run you... the average price I saw was like $60. I would be willing to bet that there is almost nothing in there I can't get at Target for $5 or less.
I can guarantee that one of the L&B locations likely has gotten rid of most of those.
Oh yeah, that one store. Yeah,
Yeah, the one that now has a big ass floral section.
yeah. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
don't be in the supplements business, guys. It's
No.
it's not good for anybody. No. I mean, okay, I'm sure it's good for somebody, but
See, I feel like
I
the
don't know,
best
like,
time to be in
you know-
the supplements business was like in the dark ages.
look,
but
one of the reasons why my parents got into shoving supplements down my throat is because they knew their eating habits were shit.
yeah.
They knew their eating habits were shit.
I mean, they ate so many mushrooms that you now have a fucking visceral reaction to them.
Yeah, well, yeah, like I cannot eat mushrooms whatsoever. But their diets otherwise were not good. Mm-hmm. And they knew it. Okay, in that case, supplements probably are the reason why I'm alive.
Yeah.
But what did I do when I could start going to the store and buying stuff for me to cook at home? Mm-hmm. For one thing, I grew up watching cooking shows, so that helped out a lot. But two, I learned how to cook.
Yeah.
I've spent a little over a year off of meat so that I would force myself to learn how to cook and eat vegetables.
Yeah.
I still couldn't fuck with mushrooms or olives, but I could do everything else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I learned how to cook. I learned how to deal with that and do it. And I got a flavor for those things. I got my palate renewed, you know, and so much better off.
Yeah.
But my parents, after, like, they were eating steadily healthier while I was at home.
Yeah.
It's like the influence was there.
Mm-hmm.
The good influence was there. When I left and I told them to fuck off, met back up with them about 10 years later, they were eating shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just the worst food. And then, you know, like, they wound up reaping the benefits of that. So I don't feel bad because I wound up telling them to fuck off again about a year later.
Yeah.
But, yeah, let's move on to the next clip.
And I have to tell you, I have never seen them use any such caution with any product. I mean, the vitamin K, the cautions that are written on this FDA insert are like no other precautions that they put on their website. And I have looked into vaccines for years. Under adverse reactions, it reads, deaths have occurred after intravenous and intramuscular administration. See the box warning. Transient flushing sensations and peculiar sensations of taste have been observed, as well as rare instances of dizziness, rapid and weak pulse, profuse sweating, brief hypotension, dyspnea, and cyanosis. Pain, swelling, and tenderness at the injection site may occur. The possibility of allergic sensitivity, including an anaphylactoid reaction, should be kept in mind. Infrequently, usually after repeated injection, erythematous, indurated, pruritic plaques have occurred. Rarely, these have progressed into lesions that have persisted for long periods. Hyperbilirubinemia, again, that's just extreme jaundice, has been observed in newborns following administration of phytonadione. So they know that this causes extreme jaundice. It's scanned right here on the FDA insert, but they are totally going to gaslight parents and just go, oh, you're just one of the 60% of full-term babies that are born with jaundice. That's kind of what they say now. It's like, oh, babies just get jaundice. We don't know why babies just get jaundice. It's normal. It's totally normal for your baby to turn yellow after your baby is born. I'll tell you, neither of my children have experienced any level of jaundice. I know that it is common. It actually is common if you have a baby before they are full term, but should not be common, in my view, if you do have a full term baby.
Okay, so babies and jaundice. This is actually really common, whether or not they have been given a vitamin K shot or not. It's due to any number of factors, but the cause that is given most of the time is that the baby hasn't developed the ability to process bilirubin, which is a yellow-orange pigment produced during the breakdown of red blood cells. Typically, jaundice from this resolves within 2 weeks as the liver starts doing its job and processes these components out of the bloodstream. There are other causes, but again, it is all actually natural and normal. Candace mentioned that her 2 kids at the time hadn't experienced it, and the reason for that may actually be racial in nature. Black children only experience it about 12% of the time, with mixed-race Black Anglo children having a slightly elevated level of it, but not nearly as much as children with other racial backgrounds. The causes of newborn jaundice are well known and documented, and most cases resolve within a small amount of time. It has absolutely fuck all to do with the vitamin K shot.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have it.
Yeah.
Your siblings didn't have it.
Yeah.
I really can't think of infants I've met that are new that have had it.
No.
Like, you know, her going... Now, it may be common in Tennessee, in her area, where they have these clusters of anti-vaxxers that don't do the fucking vitamin K shot.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention that, depending on where she's at in Tennessee,
Yeah.
they don't exactly have the most reliable water either.
Right, right.
So, you know, if
Yeah,
she's
water's
drinking,
weird. Yeah.
if she's drinking off water and then
Well, I don't think
breastfeeding,
she is.
oh,
But,
true,
yeah,
true.
but other people, because
Yeah.
she's wealthy.
Right, yeah, yeah.
They
so
probably have, like, ultra-filtered water at her mansion.
yeah.
You know.
So if other people, primarily mothers, of course, I hope a father isn't breastfeeding.
I don't think they have that technology in Tennessee. Yeah.
But, with mothers breastfeeding and drinking off anything, a certain amount of that, mineral overage
pass
is
through the breast milk. Yeah, I mean that's possible.
Or even just drinking off water while pregnant,
or mixing the baby's formula with some off water. Yeah. Like all of those are possible. But like I said though, once the liver starts doing its job
and starts filtering shit,
then it just kind of goes away on its own. Yeah. So anyway, next clip.
So now I kind of want to jump into that particular language because you will see this a lot with Big Pharma, and it's important that I impress this upon you, that when they say that there is no evidence to suggest something, it simply means that they have not looked for evidence to suggest that something is taking place. It's just one of their linguistic tricks, right? There's no evidence to suggest, which means we haven't looked into it, therefore it must not exist. And
nope, not even close. What that means, Candace, is that no studies that have been done prove this idea or link or cause or whatever. It is safe wording, meaning that we haven't seen this outcome for what we currently know or have studied. It doesn't mean that they didn't look for it, it simply wasn't observed. Because science, real science, works with, we're going to do this process, we're going to document our observations, not we're going to do this process looking for a specific outcome.
Yeah.
Unless they are doing the process per what someone else put in a journal, and they are there to observe if that outcome occurs.
Yeah.
They know the outcome is possible because someone else did it, we're following their method.
Yeah.
That's real fucking science, not this fucking bullshit. But in the case of bullshit she is slinging here, studies have been done on links between vitamin K and her claims, and those studies have come up empty. But it also means that the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. As in that quote, I saw it and I had to put it in there.
God damn.
Just because it hasn't been noticed does not mean it does not exist. That's all the wording means. But in her case with this bullshit, I've not heard one claim from her yet that hasn't actually been studied by either the CDC or its international equivalents.
I never thought you'd end up fucking using the evidence of absence is not the absence of evidence.
It is true. It is true. It is true. But in her case with this, this next clip is long. The longest clip of this episode of our show. I've chosen to let it play through. It is about 6 minutes long, and I may pause it if Matthew has anything to say while it plays, or if I think of something, but I think it needs to be heard. Mostly to quell anyone that says we don't play her in full or that we take her out of context, which I assure you, I do not take her out of context. This entire episode, to this point, I have only clipped off the front of it with her theme music. The entire rest of this clip after clip after clip has been directly brought over. Anyway, here she is.
I'm going to use a recent example that took place that all of us will remember because it was kind of the worst gaslighting that I think women have gone through in recent times. Now, I will honestly and openly tell you, I did not get the COVID vaccine. Kind of makes sense, a little on brand here. I don't vaccinate my children, and I have not vaccinated myself since I had that incident happen to me. But
bullshit.
I do want to draw your attention to women who, after receiving the COVID vaccine, began discussing how they were having menstruation issues. Remember this? They were having menstruation issues. I remember my girlfriend just saying this. Some women were not getting their periods at all. Some women couldn't stop getting their periods. Like they were bleeding for months on end. It was all over the place. It was super wacky. And again, these were women. This is why this is particularly horrific, the gaslighting that took place, because these were women that did what Big Pharma told them to do, right? They went out and they did their part and they got the vaccine. Now, some of these people did this so that they could go back to work, which I think is horrific circumstance to do something. But nonetheless, they listened, right? So you would think that after they listened, that they would be listened to, right? That people would believe them when they said they were having menstruation issues. That's not what took place. And this is an article that they've now locked down because it's just so embarrassing and so horrific to look back upon. And this was published in the San Francisco Chronicle around this time when they began this sort of mass gaslighting. This is a direct quote from the article. It says, but several health experts, including in the Bay Area, say there is no evidence that vaccines are to blame. No studies have found that the vaccines currently authorized for use in the United States impact menstrual cycles. Dr. Paula Hillard, a pediatric and adolescent gynecologist at Stanford Children's Health, said it's, quote, biologically implausible that the vaccine can impact menstrual cycles or fertility. This takes us right back to the last episode where I told you the tricks that Big Pharma uses, right? So these are the linguistic tricks. There's no evidence that vaccines are to blame. Then they bring in an expert. Dr. Hill is a pediatric and adolescent gynecologist, so she knows more than you about your period, I guess, right? So if you've been getting your period on time for 28 days your entire life and now you're not, well, Dr. Paula Hillard says it's a biological implausibility that could possibly be related to the vaccine. This was literally the mainstreamed opinion. Shut up, women. You're all histrionic. You're all being hysterical. Okay, we know, trust us, we're the doctors, and you're fine. Nothing's happening to you. Then what ended up taking place was that more and more women kept saying it, and then they eventually had to sort of cop to it. And they decided, yeah, okay, it could actually be impacting your period. This is months later, by the way. This is months later after they made other women get it. They came out and they said, actually, we are now going to fund a study to look into why it is that the COVID vaccine is impacting people's menstruation. And in this study, which I am reading to you from the New York Post, they said that the reason why they didn't initially look into it or explore it, and this is directly from the NICHD director, she said, quote, we were worried this was contributing to vaccine hesitancy in reproductive aged women. And she said nobody expected it to affect the menstrual system because the information wasn't being collected in the early vaccine studies. Okay, that could be totally true, but why would they then say that it for sure was a biological implausibility that it was? Why not just say that we have not actually looked into this? We're hearing you guys, and we're going to actually take a look into that. Why not just immediately own that you had no idea why this was taking place? She said, she actually wanted to say this, which is incredible. She said, as changes to the menstrual cycle are really not a life or death issue, they decided to only prioritize the most critical risks that were associated with the COVID-19 vaccine. And they didn't want people to be vaccine hesitant, so they simply ignored all the women that were saying that this was impacting their menstruation until they were ready to admit it. And what is problematic about this? It means that your priorities don't mean anything to them. Now, perhaps to this NICHD director, it didn't mean anything. Sure, it's just a period. Who cares? Whatever. But maybe you are a woman who's of age to have children, and maybe actually of the utmost importance to you is your fertility. Maybe of the utmost importance, she was tracking your menstruation cycle. Maybe if you had known that it was causing irregularities, right, with menstruation, you would have opted not to get the vaccine, because you would have said, until I see what this is going to do long term, I want to have kids. It's not worth it to me. I can take COVID. I can get sick with COVID. I feel confident that I'm going to get better, but I'm not going to get this vaccine because, God forbid, it impacts fertility, because we know that menstruation is directly linked to fertility. It's a signal to you of your fertility health, right? Unbelievably, they decided for you that it didn't matter, okay? And that is such a dangerous precedent to set, that they get to lie to you, to continue to lie to you to your face, because they want you to perform an action, and that action at that time was to get the COVID vaccine. They didn't want you to be hesitant about getting the COVID vaccine. That means that you have to have it within your own ability to be able to think critically about these issues. You have to have it within your own power to be able to research things, to not simply blanket trust the ever-changing science, because that's what it is. It just changes. They just changed their mind about 7 months later and said, never mind, yeah, it definitely is impacting fertility. And for a lot of young women, it was too late. And I think there's a lot more that will be learned in that space, but I am not going to discuss that any further today. All right, guys, so
Okay, so about the article she referenced in the San Francisco Chronicle, it is behind a paywall. I tried to access it with the Wayback Machine at Internet Archive, and I hit a block. I moved on from that to several results I was able to pull up on the National Institutes of Health website, including two. One from 2022, where they measured the effects of COVID-19 vaccines on about 5,000 Arab women that agreed to the study, and a broader study that took information from several studies across the board and was printed last year. The NIH, the National Institutes of Health, along with its international associations, did find links between COVID-19 vaccines and menstrual health outcomes. The results were varied, but most included women bleeding for longer or heavier than normal, and this included some women that were in postmenopause already. It affected women across the world, but the effects were usually temporary, lasting no longer than a couple of months in most cases. The study authors of every study admitted that the focus was on getting the vaccines out, making them available, and menstrual health was not a factor studied in the trials of the vaccines. But the study authors of every study I pulled up suggested that it be policy in the future to include the study of future vaccine effects on menstruation. It was noted how disruptive this must have been, and may continue to be disruptive if women get COVID vaccine boosters going forward. No one buried this. It was reported to the VAERS system, VAERS, the same one that I used to disprove Candace's story about ever being vaccine injured. And also, Candace's assertion that women regularly get their 28-day cycle on time all the time is bullshit. I've known many women in my lifetime that have had cycles go off schedule frequently. I can only imagine that the Stepford wives Candace surrounds herself with would insist that their periods and baby factories are perfect and beyond reproach at all times. But anyway, I wanted to play that through to give her the space she certainly didn't get in the 30-second or less clips I had to cut to this point in this episode. There isn't much left to go, so let's allow her to be terrible for a few more minutes.
Just continuing and wrapping up the FDA insert and what is on the warning labels of these products that we are just injecting into newborns. This says benzyl alcohol as a preservative in bacteriostatic sodium chloride injection has been associated with toxicity in newborns. Data are unavailable on the toxicity of other preservatives in this age group. There is no evidence to suggest that the small amount of benzyl alcohol contained in aquamethadone, when used as recommended, is associated with toxicity. So you have to love that. There's no evidence to suggest, meaning that we haven't looked for it, so therefore we can say that there is no evidence to suggest it. Pointedly ridiculous.
Yes, Candace, you are being pointedly ridiculous here. Studies have been performed on what level of benzyl alcohol would be toxic, and the tiny 0.9% of the vitamin K shot, 0.9% used as a preservative for this liquid vitamin shot, is not enough to do anything, even to a newborn.
This part seems also important because a lot of times doctors will say that vitamin K is a clotting agent, and it simply is not. The vitamin K shot, this is just the last portion of that. It says when vitamin K1 is used to correct excessive anticoagulant-induced hypoprothrombonemia, anticoagulant therapy still being indicated, the patient is again faced with the clotting hazards existing prior to starting the anticoagulant therapy. Phytonadione is not a clotting agent, but overzealous therapy with vitamin K may restore conditions which originally permitted aquamethadone. So take from that what you will. It kind of is essentially saying, like, this should not be assumed to be something that's going to be efficient to help clot, but it may actually help restore the conditions which originally permitted aquamethadone. That seems very confusing to me, but I wanted to point that out because you will hear doctors tell you that it is expressly a clotting agent when it very clearly says here that it is not.
Okay, just make sure I'm understanding the fancy speak correctly. Okay. What she just said there is it is used to help prevent anticoagulation.
Yes.
Which means it is a clotting agent. Because clotting agents are used to prevent anticoagulation, which is when your blood decides to free fall out of your body.
Yeah. Oh, here's the thing. What this actually means is that it fights anticoagulation, as you just said. Candace has no excuse to not know what that is. Coagulation is basically blood clotting like it is supposed to upon injury. This helps the body naturally fight anticoagulation, which is the opposite of coagulation. For fuck's sake, the word anemia is right there in the more official wording. And further, if a doctor told her or other people like her that it was a clotting agent, they were dumbing it down, and this is a good example of why that is a bad practice. Mainly, even though I understand why they would tell people like her that it is a clotting agent, it would be better to tell them that it helps the body do the clotting it is supposed to do naturally. She shills for a fucking supplement company. That kind of wording should work on her. And speaking of medical professionals and having conversations with them, let's listen now to Candace's take on how parents should approach asking doctors about these things. You know, the presenter that couldn't wrap her head around a supplement shot that is mostly water, but is designed to help infants coagulate properly and survive the rigors of being a fucking newborn.
This part seems also important because a lot of times people say, this part seems also...
There we go.
All right, guys, to wrap up this episode, I do want to try to give parents questions that they can ask their doctors, questions that I had, questions that I have. And if you are actually working with a doctor that cares about you and cares about your child, and not just an authoritarian who is telling you what to do but wants to talk you through the process, they should be willing to find these answers for you or to plainly just give you the answers because they know them. What I have found with a lot of doctors is that they don't mean harm, obviously, but what they were tasked with doing in medical school is just remembering a lot of information. And they don't often think critically about the things that they are doing. They just know, and I have a doctor friend, he's a surgeon, he says that literally in medical school, we just learn about vaccines, but we don't study them, we don't know the history of them, we just know that this is what you are supposed to give to a child when they are this old. And I found that to be really interesting. It's not that they're trying to harm you, it's just that this is what they were told to do. And somehow they've become an authority now. And you will find that when you push back politely, when you ask a question, a lot of them get very angry and very upset because they've never had somebody do that, because I think they just assumed that once they officially became a doctor that they could no longer be questioned. Again, that's an authoritarian. That is not somebody that you want to be working with your children long term. So these are the questions that I would recommend that parents ask their doctors about the vitamin K shot if this is something that you still are thinking that you might want to give your child. And please, before we even get to these questions, be sure to watch the next episode when we talk about circumcision, because that is a huge piece of the vitamin K puzzle and why they are wanting children to have the vitamin K shot in the first place and why America is unique to it. That's going to be coming up next week. But first question, may I see the insert for the ingredients in this vaccine? You've just told me that it is just a vitamin, so do you mind sharing with me the insert? Can I see what is actually in it? That is about the time that your doctor was going to freak out. Because if they just told you it was just a vitamin, you are about to discover that they lied to you.
And this is why doctors don't like her. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you could all hear the glee in her voice there. These episodes are not meant to inform. They are meant to turn parents into anti-medicine weirdos. She just wrongly spent her time going through the vaccine ingredients, getting shit wrong either on purpose or through bad study. So a parent goes in with this take on things and asks to see the vitamin K fact sheet. Then what? Even if the doctor hands it over without drama, these people have been armed with bad intel. And now, a doctor has to be calm and rational and explain this shit when they really shouldn't have to do so to counter her bullshit. These questions are designed to harass medical professionals. Now, before I continue, you heard her there talking about the next episode is circumcision.
We're going to be talking about a lot of child peen next week, aren't we?
God, I think so. I haven't listened to it yet.
Okay.
But
you've spared yourself having listened to her talk about peen.
I'm going to have to turn it into an MP3 probably tomorrow and start listening to it and go through it a couple of times and scream a lot in my car. So that's something I'm so looking forward to that. So let's allow her to continue.
Just the second question: why do you say that it is just a vitamin when these ingredients clearly show that the synthetic vitamin K is actually the smallest portion of all of the ingredients that are listed in this injection? That is the truth. When you look at the injection, the smallest portion of the ingredients is the vitamin K. The other stuff I read to you are bigger portions. In other words, the majority of the ingredients in this shot are not a vitamin at all. So why did you say that, doctor? About that time, they're probably going to tell you, get out of my office. Third question I would ask them is, why are we injecting this intramuscularly? That is what they do for infants. When the warning label on the insert insists that it be injected subcutaneously, which means via the skin, unless the subcutaneous route is not feasible. And the fourth question I would ask.
Yeah, it is subcutaneous. The preferred method for doing this shot is subcutaneous. It's right there in the practice and the directions. Candace is here assuming that a doctor would choose another route willingly and encouraging parents to expect the same as well. And now it's time for Candace to wrap it up with more bullshit questions parents can ask as she sets up our next show as well, which I am definitely not looking forward to working on.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to clear up here before we go on. This shot, when it's administered, is given just under the skin of the thigh.
Yeah.
Like, it is such a fine thing. Mm-hmm. Like, it's only done into muscle when that is like, when like they say right there on the fucking warning on the insert, there's no other choice.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. But if the needle slips, if the doctor slips or whatever, and it goes into the muscle, it's still okay.
Yeah.
She's just, God, I fucking, Next and last clip.
Ask them is, under what circumstances would my child acquire bleeding deficiency? That is a big, big question. What causes bleeding deficiency? And why is it not okay for parents to choose otherwise for their children? Again, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but we will be talking about circumcision, which is a uniquely American phenomenon. It's going to shock you when I show you guys. I, just like you, I assumed that everybody everywhere was circumcising their children when they were born. And then I was shocked to discover that this is uniquely American and that not even the majority of the Canadians are doing this. Just above, below, anywhere, Americans are just out here circumcising their babies because, you're going to be pretty disgusted when you find out what we are doing with infant foreskin. I'll tell you one thing about America, there is a profit to be made. Big Pharma has figured it out, and they are going to make that profit. You know what my spiel is going to be here at the end, you guys? These episodes are for free, a couple episodes for free, but eventually this is all going to be behind the paywall. We just wanted to put some in front of the paywall so that people that are not traditionally followers of Candace Owens, because maybe you hate my politics, know that this show is not going to be that. It's going to simply arm you with some facts and some questions that you can go ahead and have a more informed discussion with your doctors about. And so if you like these episodes, then please consider signing up for Daily Wire Plus. I don't know when exactly. I don't know if we're just going to do 3 episodes in front of the paywall. But if you like this, also share this, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell if you guys know how to work YouTube. Send this to your friends. Even if they hate my politics, tell them, I promise, just watch 1 episode. It's going to be fine. Candace is not going to talk to you about politics at all. That is my promise to all of you, unless we're talking about politicians that support vaccines or politicians that are being funded by lobbyists that are supporting vaccines. Other than that, this is a uniquely apolitical show. And the last thing I'm going to ask you to do is to email me with any questions, any facts. Sometimes I get doctors that email me something and it completely blows my mind. Maybe you're like, this one thing you got wrong, you pronounced this wrong. Definitely probably pronounced a few things wrong in there. Feel free to badger me via email. My email address is candace@dailywire.com. If you can tell, I am very happy to be doing this show. I am just so blessed to be doing this and so grateful for the opportunity to share the information that I found with other parents. So God bless you all, and I will see you guys next week.
Free at last. Getting to the end of any of these fucking episodes is like getting to the end of the Hobbit movie trilogy. I suffered, I railed against the inaccuracies, I screamed, I nearly fell asleep often, but here we are at the end. For now, I spared you all from the ending theme music. And no need to thank me, you're welcome. Now let's drink something that's probably going to suck.
What's wrong?
As always on this show, worst is first.
What's wrong with the Hobbit trilogy?
Have we not had this discussion?
I don't think we have.
I've had this discussion with your sister before. It kills me because I know she likes the Hobbit trilogy. I wanted to like it. Mm-hmm. Okay? They cast a great actor as Bilbo.
Yeah.
Again, Gandalf returned.
Mm-hmm.
They got the return of a lot of other actors, including Legolas for some reason.
Yeah.
You know, so they did a lot of things right, but that movie took so long to make that Peter Jackson wound up doing it. He didn't want to.
Yeah.
And you can kind of feel it.
Mm.
It doesn't feel like Lord of the Rings. It's not as good. They took the one thin book and stretched it out to 3 films. Okay, I'll give you that if you're going to do it right.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They inserted shit. They moved some shit around.
They probably could have done it all in 2 movies.
For scenes like the barrel, escape. That was cool. They did do some cool shit. I even liked, fucking Benedict Cumberbatch being Smaug the Dragon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always forget that he's the voice of Smaug.
Yeah. I mean, so for that film, I mean, it was, Holmes and Watson as Dragon and Bilbo. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, later on in the Marvel U, we get Holmes and Watson as Americans.
Yeah.
As Dr. Stephen Strange and whatever CIA agent fucking...
I thought he was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent.
Whatever he was. I don't care. Yeah. Doesn't matter. But we get Mark...
Oh, we also got Gollum as well.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, he was in... Right. He was in that movie with him. Yeah.
Wasn't he
He was
Killmonger?
in Black Panther.
Yeah, wasn't he Killmonger in Black Panther?
No. He was the guy supplying weapons.
Right,
He was supplying the Wakandan weapons. Yeah.
Yeah, and he got the vibranium fucking arm that he utilized like 3 times. It was something that the Everything Wrong With guy had a problem with, was like, you introduced a cool ass villain and then killed him off within the first like half hour.
Yeah.
That was his only gripe with Black Panther, was that they killed off that guy. He's like, he had such potential as a repeat arms dealer.
Yeah. Now, as I was saying, worst is first. I could have chosen the other one, but I chose this one earlier in the day while you weren't home.
Okay. I mean, it was...
Do you know where the opener is?
It's
we
probably...
may or may not need it, actually.
It might be...
I'm going to see if I can twist this off.
Okay.
Here. Keep a hold of the glasses. I'm going to see if I can twist this off.
I mean, worst case scenario, it should be in my drawer.
Yeah, okay.
You'll just have to move the cards out of the slip.
This does not feel like it's a twist off, and...
It's a little bit further back. Open the drawer a little bit more.
Oh, there we go. See it?
Right.
Alright. I see it has arrows indicating that it should twist off, but... Yeah.
Oh, it is not a twist off. That is a cruel trick.
Yeah. Oh.
I wonder if that was intentional.
Right. Okay, so let's read this for the crowd.
This was my selection.
This is Nevada Reaper Soda. It says, warning, this soda is very hot. Your mouth may catch fire. Drink at your own risk. This is directly from Rocket Fizz. This is actually carries their little...
Oh, shit, yeah.
Their little label there, yeah.
No.
Where are they from? Oh, well, ingredients. Carbonated artesian spring water. Pure cane sugar. So there's no corn syrup in it. That's cool. Citric acid. Red pepper extract.
Ooh. Yeah.
Natural and artificial flavor. Gum acacia. Caramel color. Red 40, our old friend.
Ah, yes.
And flash pasteurized for stability and safety. I've never seen that on a product label before. Intellectual property and bottled by Rocket Fizz Soda Pop and Candy Shop LLC. Reno, Nevada.
Okay, thing on that.
Yeah.
I was prepared to be disappointed and hear that they added capsaicin to it.
Oh, right. Yeah, no.
Capsaicin. You know, for something that's got red 40 in it, it's really orange. They must have just added a touch of color. Oh, no, it's squish. Why are you being so restless? No, you can't.
And I mean,
put
it
that.
does have a bit of a smell to it.
Oh,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That really crawled up the nose real fast.
It really opens up. I fully recommend pouring this into a glass if you. Wow, it really does. I haven't even sipped it yet, and it is in my nostrils. Ooh, I took a big old whiff. God.
What's worse is, I don't know if it's maybe because of the fucking carbonation in it. Oh, I've got a couple over here.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're going to want to have your water ready for this. Now, here's the thing, listeners. We are chili heads, okay?
Yes.
Okay, there's a local grocery chain here called Lunds & Byerly's. They make an amazing ghost chili pepper salsa that I love. I won't sit there and eat a whole jar of it. I'll take like 2 big tablespoons and put it into a little thing and eat it with some unsalted chips. And that's a nice little snacky for me. It does absolutely open me up, but after I get past once I get down to where I'm basically scraping the remnants of the chip bowl, I'm kind of over the heat. It's really sweet though. They have brown sugar in the recipe. So it's enough to heat you up and sweeten the deal and make you want more, make you keep going back in. It is one of my favorite things to snack on, but I do it sparingly. But yeah, it always always when I'm done eating it, my nostrils are like, okay, we need to evacuate this system now. And I got a hint of that out of sniffing this soda.
Yeah.
So we are not adverse to hot things. In fact, we love them.
Yeah. There's a brand of chip up here that, funny enough, after I ate it, I started getting better. When we first moved up
the
here,
Packy chips.
Yeah. When we first moved up here, I seem to have a weird issue where whenever I go to a brand new area, I get a bacterial infection for some reason, sneeze a whole bunch. Well, in this case, I was just gobs and gobs of snot, just constantly. Yep. And then we got the Packy chips, and Packy ghost pepper. What's fucked up about them, all right? You eat the first one, and you're like, this ain't that bad, this is a little disappointing. You eat the second one, and you're like, these got a good flavor to them. And then you're about 10 chips deep, and you're like, all right, slow down, fat ass. And then all of a sudden, everything in you lights up like a fucking wildfire. And you know the only thing that puts it out? Eating another fucking chip.
Yeah.
I sat down and ate an entire bag of chips, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to feel a little bit of no, it builds. It's fire damage that stacks. And I was in pain for an hour and a half. That being said, I bought 3 more bags.
Yeah.
But I also am the only one really in this household that actively seeks out Reaper sauces, while Thomas will, occasionally have it.
Yeah.
I'm the one that primarily uses it, not by a couple of drops in here.
No.
By the fucking 3 fucking shakes.
Yeah, dashes of things.
Dashes, yeah.
Now, that said, I do keep a hot sauce in my car that I will drink on a regular basis, and I'm almost convinced that the vitamin C and capsaicin in that keeps me healthy, because anytime I feel like a little scratch in the back of my throat, that shit's going down. Now, I'm not always a man about it. Sometimes I cry, but I enjoy it. I get the endorphin rush, and I feel better afterwards, and that's what matters. Yeah, Matthew here had no hope of growing up normal because I taught him early on how to enjoy hot foods and why we do them, and he took the instruction well. Now, that all being said, man, this stuff is still bubbling. Good Lord.
Yeah.
It's like a fucking cauldron in my glass.
You could almost huff this stuff with how much it's like.
I know, right? Okay. So hold on. Set ourselves up for some success here.
All right.
Let's get our water bottles ready.
Oh, yeah. Now the question is...
Heaven help me, I need to open up my second one.
Now the question is, are we gonna do this like how we used to do it when we'd get a new hot pepper in the house and just pour 2 glasses of milk
No.
sit there, mean mug each other, and eat the whole fucking thing, minus stem, of course.
Yeah.
Eat the whole fucking thing and then just stare each other down and wait for one of us to break.
How is it still bubbling? My God. Well, here's the deal, Chief. I poured a little less in my glass.
Shit.
I didn't realize that until just now. It's like this is really small. All right. Well, I've got my water bottle ready.
Yep.
I've got my backup ready. God, I just waved this in front of my face and my throat was like, eh. All right. Let's. Okay, let's go for it. Let's do it. Ooh, there's some heat in there. I taste it.
Huh?
It's, when it's in a soda, it really gets in your throat.
Ooh.
That is.
You know what's fucked up?
It tastes good.
It tastes good.
Yeah.
As well as there's like a nice little, like, it's like spicy Pop Rocks almost, because I can feel it on my tongue. The heat is bouncing back and forth with sweet bouncing back and forth with it.
Yeah. Like
Squish.
they've got the cat is concerned for us. she's laying on the bed now, patting him down like you'll be all right. Yeah. Ooh, man, I haven't taken any water yet.
Me neither. Oh,
I also haven't taken a second swig of this.
You can really feel the burn in your chest.
Yeah,
at this
yeah,
point.
yeah. You can feel it going down.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it. I read somewhere it can take an average of like 5 minutes for things to go from the mouth down to the gut.
Yeah. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it on its way down there. Yeah.
Man, they.
I'm gonna have some rank shit tomorrow.
Some painfuls.
Yep.
I mean, or not.
Well, see, it's never painful for me anymore. I've abused my stomach and bowel lining enough. Which, by the way, pro tip: when eating hot food, eat that shit. Right. Eat it, and then eat a cup of yogurt afterwards.
Yeah.
It's not going to quell the pain.
No.
But over time, this is probably a terrible thing to advise. But you damage and repair your stomach lining at such a rate that it has no choice but to toughen up.
Right.
I'm not saying burn your skin on the exterior and then rub it down with Silvadene until you get fire resistance.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah.
I'm saying you could do that to your gut if you're abnormal like me and choose to. Most of my friends think that there's something deeply wrong with me in doing that.
Quite possibly.
I mean, yeah.
Well, I have had my swallow of this. I'm done. You can have the rest. You don't have to.
I'll do like one more gulp.
Okay.
Just to see if maybe it stacks,
Right. Yeah, for science. How'd that hit?
That was bigger than it should have been.
His face is red.
What's worse is I got an even dumber idea.
What? Just okay. You swig it around. He's swigging it around right now. And gargling.
Oh God, that was a horrible idea. Oh, that just made it so much worse because I aerated it in my mouth. What the fuck's wrong with me?
Now, you know what the worst idea would be? And we're not going to do it. Because I'm not going to...
Snorting it?
No.
Oh, okay.
But you're close. You're close.
Yeah.
The worst idea would be getting one of those neti pots.
Oh, you're terrible. No. Oh, God damn.
For those of you who don't know, a neti pot or similar device is a thing where you basically put like a liquid into it, typically salt water. They don't recommend doing what I'm about to tell you. You put like a saline water solution into a neti pot. You put the cap on it. And what it is you turn it in what would appear to be upside down, but the cap has like a bit of a spout, bit of a straw that's bent at an angle. And it is designed to shoot water up your nostrils. Up one nostril and it comes out the other one. So imagine doing that with this super hot soda. I don't recommend it.
See what's
Like I said, we're not going to do it because that would involve burning one of our neti pots. And I'm not going to do that.
no. You know what? Wait, that's the problem.
What?
That's your takeaway problem.
I mean, yeah, because I'm not doing it.
I'm not that stupid. That being said, though, I do have. It's not a unique problem. It is I hope a decently normal issue for me. And it would be most ideal for me to do it is whether I inhale or not. Whenever I do the neti pot stuff, it never comes out the other side of my nostril. Yeah, it drains down the back of my soft palate and into my mouth.
Yeah, I've had that occur a little bit.
Every time I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time. I mentioned it to Ma, and she told me that that's a semi-normal thing to have happen.
Have you ever, like, squeezed it really hard?
No, usually I'll, like, do it gentle.
Okay, see. Yeah. No, because if you really, like, well, they've got the button on the top.
Yeah.
If you really, like, press it, it'll pressurize it, and that'll cause it to go through.
Okay, so that's probably where I'm failing short on that.
Yeah, you're going to want to, like...
Doing a gentle pressing of that and just letting it, like, drain down one soft palate, though, that would be even worse for this.
Yes, for that, yeah. But, yeah, I would say, just press that button harder, and what will happen is, like, it will, like, violently, like, shoot through your shit.
Okay.
And clean out the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and, of course, you do it the other side, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like any time that I do it, it's like, it's a full force.
What I hate about myself and this soda is... I'm still drinking it.
Yeah.
For some godforsaken reason.
He's going to finish it off.
This was my selection, y'all.
Yeah.
We were standing at the fucking Rocket Fizz.
Fizz, yeah.
Rocket Fizz candy shop, whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
No offense to Rocket Fizz if y'all's listening.
Yeah.
Love you, shop. But standing in that shop, and I was looking at all the options, and I saw Carolina Reaper amongst their hot sauce options.
Well,
and I was just like...
Nevada Reaper.
Nevada Reaper.
Because they're from Reno, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I landed on, which I gotta say... Whoa. That did not feel good. I just burped.
Yeah.
Oh, that was breathing fire. That's the fire,
effervescent breathing fire, yeah.
I gotta give Nevada props for their Reapers.
Yeah.
I think it might be kind of like, you can't have an Idaho gold potato without it being grown in Idaho soda.
Right.
Soda. God damn it. Idaho soil.
Right.
But something about the Nevada Reaper, maybe it's the radiation. Something about the Nevada Reaper hit so much harder than a Carolina Reaper.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, Carolinas, you make a decent Reaper, but it has gotten a little bit sweet tasting, whereas the Nevada Reaper just fucking punches you in the throat.
Yeah, well, that said, the Lunds and Byerly's scorpion pepper salsa,
yeah,
that's a real kick in the face.
Yeah.
That one you take gently.
Yeah, and the scorpion peppers are locally sourced.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the American Southwest is the home of the chili pepper.
Yeah.
Period. Mm-hmm. Everything that's been developed outside of that, in Thailand and other countries, came originally from the American Southwest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Which is why I find it funny that it's so popular in the Southeast as well. Mm-hmm. But I guess, the train lines and shit.
Yeah. Oy. All right. Well, that was fun.
Done.
He just finished it off. Oh. That was not advisable, but okay.
Yeah, I just did a double gulp.
Oh, no.
Oh.
God, dude. All right. Well, we'll be back in 2 weeks to hear Candace's thoughts on circumcision. I haven't listened to that episode yet, but God help me, I'm going to have to listen to it all the way through at least once.
Shit.
And then all of you will hear it. But at least you'll get to hear it with breaks of me breaking down the bullshit, as we do here. Now, hopefully I'll be able to do...
Oh, God, that made it worse.
I'm kind of hoping that I'll be able to, do episode 3 and 4, maybe? But we'll see. Because I was hoping to do episode 2 and 3 on this one when I started, And then I got into it and I was like, fuck me, this is a 3-hour show on its own. Yes, it took 3 hours to. Do you know how long the original episode was? Do you know how long the original episode 2 was?
45 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hate her for this.
Also, I just thought about something. You picked the prime time to be going over the circumcision primarily because you know what starts this Saturday and doesn't end until next Sunday?
Oh, see, we're not doing an episode for 2 weeks. So we are after Passover.
Still, you're doing the work during Passover.
That is true. That is true. You are true about that.
Yep.
All right. Well, that is it for this episode. Thank you everybody for hanging out for free. I might add. Just I guess do yourselves and society a favor at large and tell folks about the show. Eventually, I will be putting these up on YouTube, but right now I don't have the time or the mental space for that. So, that's it, everybody. Have a great 2 weeks. We'll see you soon.
Yep. Y'all have a good 2 weeks. See you then. Ciao.